The first to speak will be Amanda Curtis.
Wow. I've given several speeches all across Montana in which I've said that the key to making a difference is to show up and to say yes. And it turns out that this past week and today, I'm being asked to put my money where my mouth is. Well, here I am. I've shown up, and I'm saying yes. I want to thank all of you that are here today that epitomize that community spirit of being people who show up and say yes. So thank you. This election could decide who controls the U.S. Senate. I don't mean the Republicans versus the Democrats. I mean the millionaires versus the middle class. This is the fundamental difference between Steve Daines and me. He seems like a nice guy with a wonderful family, but I'm pretty sure he doesn't understand what life is like for the rest of us. I'm not a millionaire, but I imagine eventually you stop noticing how much it costs you to fill up your gas tank. I'm a teacher and a proud union member. Every day I teach math to high school students. I teach and they learn because of a basic promise we've made as a society. And that's that if you pay attention in school and are willing to work hard, this is the land of opportunity. There's no better place to be than America, and there's no better state to be in than Montana. But America is breaking its promises. The cost of college is going through the roof. You literally cannot work your way through school these days, so you take out loans, more every year, and the interest rates are going up and up and up. And it isn't just the cost of higher education. This is the worst job market in a generation. But the stock market's doing just fine. Wall Street's doing great. This recovery has not reached the rest of us, you and I. And that's because Steve Daines and his colleagues have continued to put the interests of big corporations ahead of working Montanans like you and like me. He says we should pass tax cuts for himself and his buddies. I think they should pay their fair share. He thinks we should cut Medicare, Medicaid, and Pell Grants. I think we should shore up those programs who have worked for so many, like myself. These are not Steve Daines and my only difference. Our opponent voted this year to sell off huge chunks of our public land. I'm an avid hiker, skier, climber, and mountain biker. I love the outdoors. It's part of what defines us as Montanans and what I promise to protect as your next senator. My opponent, our opponent, like Billings Mayor Tom Hannell, supports keeping discrimination against LGBT Montanans legal. We think we should respect all Montana families and protect our brothers and sisters from discrimination. I'm asking, and you've heard others ask today, for you to take a leap of faith with us. Because the national media and the political class has already decided that this race is over. But I've got a secret. None of those folks get to vote in the state of Montana. all of you do, and I bet you know a few other people who do too. We all need to acknowledge that this is going to be hard, but everything worth doing is hard, right? So how are we going to win? For the next 3 months, we're going to cross this state, towns small and large. We're going to talk to people. We're going to share our vision of an economy that works for all of us, not just for the richest Americans. But beyond that, we're going to listen because there's a hunger for people for leaders who will actually listen for a change. And if we can do this together, I'll make a promise to you right now about what I'll do as your next senator. First, I'll work to overturn Citizens United and pass campaign finance reform that empowers real people, not corporations. Second, I'll fight to make sure wealthy people and big corporations are paying their fair share in taxes and that the economy is working for all of us, not just the wealthy. Third, we'll invest in schools and colleges and roads and bridges to create jobs now and to keep America strong for the long term. But I cannot do this on my own. I'll work my tail off, I promise you that. I can't talk to everyone without your help, but together we can. And those conversations will be worth more than any TV ad purchased by some out-of-state political consultant. And if we win here in Montana, outspent, outgunned in a race where we were left for dead, it'll send a message to Washington, D.C. that we want change. It'll send an even more important message to other cities and states across the country that we can help make that change happen. But to get this done, I need all of you to show up and say yes. Thank you.
Mr. Adams, go ahead.
Good morning. I want to thank the Montana Democratic Party for having an open and transparent selection process. That's the first step in many steps that we need to take to demonstrate to independents that we are the party that does business in the open for everyone to see. I think they deserve big credit for that today. Thanks. Oh, just a little bit, thanks. So, my parents honeymooned in Yellowstone National Park. That was in the 40s. My brother and I had been to Yellowstone National Park 4 times by the time I was 18. There are pictures in our family album of my brother and I feeding peanut butter and jelly sandwiches to bears in the car. So I guess things have changed a little bit since then down at Yellowstone. The first time I came to Yellowstone and saw that magic place, I fell in love and I was determined to come and live in Montana. As I grew up, my mother founded Southeast Texas Planned Parenthood in 1963. That was before Roe v. Wade. And what I learned and what my mother experienced was that, of course, handing out birth control pills quickly becomes the very least of it. It's really about health care, particularly for poor women. And my mother went door to door collecting dollars, went through the medical office buildings looking for volunteer docs. I learned about the importance of choice at the dining room table. When I was 19, I organized workers in Alaska. When I was 21, I got a job, because I happened to finish college a little early, teaching the second semester history to seventh graders. I joined the union in a right-to-work state, and the reason there was a job available was because the last teacher had been shot and killed by one of the students. Teaching is the hardest job in America. It's certainly the hardest job I've ever had. At 21, I finished teaching and went off to law school. At 26, I was successful pro bono counsel representing the environmentalists in the largest New York State nuclear power plant case in history. At 28, I was a tenure-track professor at the University of Montana. I joined the Northern Plains Resource Council and have been a member for more than 30 years. The ranch has been featured on their annual report cover. I was an early member of AERO, the Alternative Energy Resource Organization. At 33, I bought that ranch, all 160 acres and 3 cows. The neighbors came over to help, of course, but didn't take long. I've built that ranch for the last 30 years, buying property and equipment and cattle as I can afford it. And I've reassembled an historic territorial ranch. I don't know what that's called on 6th Street, but in ranch country, that's called self-made. Ranching in Montana was my American dream. But now the dream is under serious siege, and it's under serious siege in the worst possible way. 2 different studies out in the last month say that Americans of all political stripes, believe that their children will not have a better life than they do. The percentage of people in America that believe their kids are going to be better off is in the 20% range. And we need, as Democrats, to learn how to talk to these people. We need to restore faith and optimism in this country. We need to say to people, as a matter of fact, your kids are going to be better off, and here's how. Democrats need to understand that John Walsh spent $2.7 million checking off the Washington, D.C. Democratic list, and he was 13 points behind when he got out. If you think that checking the list is the way to win this election, don't vote for me. Because I'm not going to check the list. I'm going to talk about issues that are really important to Montanans, and I'm not going to talk about issues that have not moved the needle. Look, at the end of the day, if you don't know that the Democrats stand for choice, you probably are dead. So talking about choice over and over and over again, it reaffirms your Democratic credentials, but it's not moving the needle where it needs to be. So here's what we're going to do instead, and I'm going to tell you exactly how I am going to beat Steve Daines. And I want you to write this down. My plan to beat Steve Daines is the Fort Peck Dam. Write it down. That's the strategy. The Fort Peck Dam. Now let me illustrate that. The Fort Peck Dam was started in 1932 by a new president. We all know Montana went into the Depression 10 years early. And by 1936, the dam was employing 10,600 people. And for the next 5 presidential elections, you know, Montana voted for Franklin Delano Roosevelt out there in eastern Montana and in the rest of the state. Because FDR understood that if you're going to win elections, you have to talk to all of the people. And it wasn't just Democrats that got jobs at Fort Peck Dam. It wasn't just Democrats that got electricity from Fort Peck Dam. It was everybody, and everybody understood that the point of Fort Peck Dam was to lift everyone up. To lift everyone up. And that's my strategy. So, for example, fiber optic cable, high-speed fiber optic cable. Nobody's talking about that in this election. Nobody. Are you kidding me? The internet is the electricity of our generation. And industry and healthcare and teachers and students and businesses depend on it. And as John Walsh said last week, well, you know, healthcare and the VA are all going online, and that doesn't really work for Montanans because we have a connectivity issue. That's right, we do. So how about we talk about it, and how about we fix it? Because what's really important here is to have high-speed fiber optic cable to everyone. All of the information in the world is on this device. All of the information in the world is on this device. And every young person knows how to use it, even if grandma doesn't. But grandma's going to want to know that she has high-speed fiber optic cable so she doesn't have to drive to Billings, because this device is going to be able to monitor her health. And Montana, you are being left behind. You're being left behind because Google Fiber is installing fiber in 34 cities, and none of them are in Montana. And we need to understand, whether we like it or not, that the future depends on high-speed fiber optic cable. The future depends on high-speed fiber optic cable and the ability to access the knowledge industry. That's where this country is going, and nobody's talking about it, but I am. And in creating high-speed fiber optic cable, we will be talking to all of the people, because Republicans and independents understand just as well as Democrats that there's a connectivity problem in Montana. And so we'll be talking about an issue that is the future. Frankly, it's the present, and affects everyone. Talk to a neighbor that's not a Democrat. Ask them how their connectivity is. Everybody talks about their internet connectivity. I'm going to talk about it. And it's a huge, huge job creator. The average network technologist earns between $50,000 and $75,000. My estimate is we'll need at least 1,500 in Montana. Let me give you another example of the issues that I'm going to talk about, which are not the Democratic checklist. You know, we spend a lot of time as Democrats talking about choice. I can talk about choice. I've been living the choice issue since I was about 10. The issue isn't choice. If you don't know that the Democrats support choice at this point, then you need to understand that those people are probably dead or probably not going to vote for you. What we need to talk about to women is something different. We need to talk to them not about the checklist, but about something that everybody's ears perk up about. Every parent of young children, if you say child care to them, their ears perk up. Because every parent who has a child between 0 and 4, every parent with a child between 0 and 4 has child care issues. And if you start talking about child care, you're suddenly going to get independents listening to you. I think our governor is going to get pre-K. I appreciate his passion, his discipline, his intellectual support, and I think he's going to get that. So I'm not going to talk about pre-K. I'm going to talk about 0 to 4 and the importance of developing a comprehensive child care program in this country so that parents, and particularly women who have that baby on the hip, have the opportunity to do what they want to do in addition to taking care of their children. And that's how I'm going to talk to women. Let me tell you something else I'm going to talk about. So far I'm going to talk about technology, which is the future. It's here, and everybody needs it, or 5 years from now, your kids won't stay in Montana because they're going to go to a job where there's high-speed fiber optic cable. And if there is high-speed fiber optic cable, then they can stay in Montana, and we can keep those children. I'm also going to talk about water. Nobody's talking about water in this state. And yet if you talk to any ditch rider in any county, they will tell you that water is the future of Montana. Agriculture is 1/3 of our revenue in the state of Montana, and water, of course, is the lifeblood for all of us. Nobody's talking about water, and I'm going to talk about water, and I guarantee you when the word comes out of my mouth, every rancher and farmer is going to listen to what I have to say about water, because that is their lifeblood. So far that's 3 issues that I'm aiming at independents, because you know the registered Democrats and the registered Republicans, they're about equal, within 1 or 2%. It's the independents who decide this race. And you have to talk about issues that they need to hear about. And they know where we stand on all the Democratic checklist issues. John Walsh just spent $2.7 million making sure they understood about, we're not going to privatize Social Security, we're not going to privatize Medicaid, we believe in choice, we believe in raising the minimum wage, and all of the other issues. They know where we stand, and he has not moved the needle. I believe that the environment is the economy. We are all here because of this magnificent landscape. I believe in science-based environmental policy. That'll put Steve off a little bit, that word science. We're here in Montana, we're just so fortunate to have a Republican candidate who takes Genesis literally and the Gospels as merely advisory. Look, we all know that sorting out energy policy and environmental policy is tricky in the Democratic Party. But the first step you take to sorting it out is simply to tell the truth about what you believe. And then you go to work on the problems. And I have been extremely clear about where I am on environmental policy. There is climate change. It does threaten us. It is here now, and we do need to do something about it. And I really am concerned about those 1,200 coal workers, but I'm also concerned about the rest of the state of Montana. And so I want to talk to you about how we talk about climate change, and we also talk about a fair transition for those workers. Look, coal is dead. Coal is dead. It is deader than a doornail. Don't take my word for it. Take the utilities that are spinning off their coal-fired utility plants. Take the coal companies who are all losing money. Now, it's dead, but there will be a transition. And the question here is, are we going to be honest and talk about the transition, or are we just going to pretend that somehow in the big tent we can work out climate change and coal, but don't ask us how? I have been clear with my friends in the environmental community that I support them on climate change because it is the hinge issue of civilization. It is the issue that will determine if we want to continue as a species. And I have been clear with my environmental friends that I support strong environmental protection for our lands, and I support public lands not being sold to anybody else. But I have also told my environmental friends in the Main Street environmental organizations that they need a reboot on their priorities when it comes to Butte and the Berkeley pit. Okay? It's not fair to ask Al Ekblad to go to his members and say, we have to vote for this Democrat who has an environmental policy because, gosh, it's all going to work out. What it is fair to do is to say, you know what? Just because the Berkeley pit is a Superfund site doesn't mean it's been fixed. That just means the problem has been identified. There are 83 billion gallons of poison being stored in the Berkeley pit, and the Environmental Protection Agency's solution is to let the pit fill up and then, well, gosh, I don't know what's next. Maybe we'll figure it out. What the Superfund site agreement requires that our politicians, Democrats and Republicans, seek money to fix the pit every year. Nobody, not a Democrat and not a Republican, has sought any money to address the issues of the Berkeley pit since 2005. That's 9 years. Now, if we're going to get union folks to support Democrats, we have to be able to demonstrate that we take their concerns legitimately. And when somebody leaves a mess, both in human lives and in environmental damage, we're going to clean it up. Private sector, public sector, whatever you want to call it, but we need to demonstrate to everyone that we're going to clean it up. And the environmental organizations have not done what they need to do to say to workers, look, we've got a Superfund problem in Libby, we've got a Superfund problem in Butte, and we're going to clean it up. Having the EPA say it's a Superfund site doesn't clean it up. And we need to get the money every year. And by the way, we have one of the best universities in America just down the street from the Berkeley pit. Happens to know a little something about mining. Please explain to me why Democrats are not asking for money to clean up the pit. That's what we need to do. And then if we start asking for money to clean up the Berkeley pit, then we can go to Al Ekblad and we can say, look, we got the money. There's good jobs in that cleanup, and we're going to take care of the people who are affected by the pit. And then maybe you'll have a little confidence when we start talking about coal that we're going to take care of those folks in coal strip that are losing their jobs because coal is not the future. We need, as Democrats, to demonstrate with what we do with the Berkeley pit that you can count on us in the working community. They shouldn't have to just trust us. We need to campaign on issues that will help the down ticket. We need to campaign on issues that will help John Lewis beat the goofball who's running against him. Sometimes I don't know where they find these people. We need to talk about issues that Democrats do not traditionally talk about. This is Montana. We don't have a majority. We need to talk about issues that matter to independents. And I've just listed some, and I could list many more. If you're concerned that I don't know what the Democratic checklist is, go to my website. It's listed out in detail where I stand on every issue, and you can come to your own conclusion. We need to find a way to lift everyone up. We need to be joyous. We need to be happy. We need to find a way to lift folks up. And we can do that with talking about the kinds of issues that I've laid out, with the Fort Peck Dam strategy. If you go back to the checklist, you'll all feel good about it, but you're going to lose the election. We have to talk to independents, and that's what I am suggesting that we do. Let me wrap up, because I'm sure you're, thank you. Let me wrap up, because I'm sure you're tired of listening to me. Danes can still be beat. The independents haven't made up their mind. I can beat Steve Daines, and the simple reason is I have an organization. I will be in eastern Montana on Sunday morning if I win the vote here in a few minutes. But you need to understand that you have to talk to independents, and that's what I intend to do. So we're going to have a whole different set of issues for Steve Daines to have to give us his wacko views on, because we're going to talk about things that really matter to people. I very much appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today, and I, of course, look forward to the vote. And whoever wins today, I will be supporting them. Thank you very much. Thank you.